Just hours from now, he is set to sit down with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago. The two of them set to talk about fresh tensions with Iran, as well as advancing the peace plan in Gaza.
Yeah, and as for Trump's meeting with Zelensky, the president says Russia and Ukraine could be very close to securing a peace deal.
I believe it's a war that we have two willing parties, we have two willing countries. They want to see it end. Look, the people of Ukraine want it to end, and the people of Russia want it to end, and the two leaders want it to end.
And correspondent Madison Scarpino is joining us live in West Palm Beach, Florida, with the latest on these talks at Mar-a-Lago. Madison, good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill. President Trump says they are closer to ending this years-long war than ever. Both he and Zelensky say that their meeting yesterday was excellent, but there are still some concerns.
We could be very close. There are one or two very thorny issues, very tough issues, but I think we're doing very well. We made a lot of progress today, but really we've made it over the last month. This is not a one-day process deal. This is very complicated stuff.
Some of those issues are territorial concessions, which is very sensitive for Ukrainians. And Zelensky says there would need to be a referendum to give up any territory.
We have to respect our law and our people. We respect the territory which we control. This is a very tough question. And of course, we have with Russians different positions on it.
Other big sticking points are security guarantees and demilitarization zones. And while President Trump is optimistic about reaching a peace deal, Russian President Vladimir Putin still has to agree to the terms. It's unclear if he will, but President Trump says Putin also wants peace and says he had a very productive phone call with him.
I saw a very interesting President Putin today. I mean, he wants to see it happen. He wants to see it. He told me very strongly. I believe him.
So we will see what happens with that. And later today, we're expecting to see Prime Minister Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago. He and Trump will reportedly discuss the future of the Gaza peace deal. Netanyahu will also give the president an update on Iran and its ballistic missile program. And it all comes as Iran's president is saying they're in a full-fledged war with the U.S., Israel, and Europe. He's saying all of those places do not want his country to be stable. So President Trump and Netanyahu will clearly be having some very serious conversations today. Bill?
Yeah, and that Ukraine deal obviously has been the toughest one to nail down. Hopefully they're making some good progress on that front. Madison Scarpino live in Florida for us. Madison, thanks. Molly?
All right, for more on all of this, potentially some of that progress, let's bring in former CIA station chief and Fox News contributor, Dan Hoffman. Thank you so much for joining us here on the cusp of a new year. Still no peace in Ukraine. And really significant attacks by Russia, even as these meetings, just right before these meetings began at Mar-a-Lago, major missile barrages and drone attacks there in Kyiv. One person killed, 20 people reported injured. So this goes on. There doesn't seem to be much of a pause from Russia's standpoint. And a key sticking point Madison was highlighting, as well as the leaders highlighting, is this Donbass region. Take a listen. This is President Trump.
The word agreed is too strong. I would say not agreed, but we're getting closer to an agreement on that, and that's a big issue, certainly. That's one of the big issues, and I think we're closer than we were probably. It's unresolved, but it's getting a lot closer. That's a very tough issue, but one that I think will get resolved.
Perhaps one of the reasons it's so tough, as Volodymyr Zelensky points out, is that he would need to have a referendum, that the people might vote and have a say on this specific issue. Your thoughts on where things stand and this sticking point?
Yeah, listen, I'm a little more pessimistic. And look, I spent decades of my career trying to see the world through the twisted KGB eyes of Vladimir Putin. And frankly, I think we're a long ways off from peace. Ukraine has been the victim of Russian military aggression going back to 2014 when Russia illegally annexed Crimea. And yes, we can have these sideshow discussions about Donbass and demilitarized zone, but it doesn't change the fact that Vladimir Putin's strategic objective has been, since the beginning, to overthrow the democratically elected government of Ukraine and install a puppet regime. Putin is happy to have the negotiations carry on. He wants to create the false impression that he supports them, to deflect blame for the war, which is at the Kremlin, where it belongs. It should be, at least, because the war would end today if Vladimir Putin would stop sending his soldiers into the meat grinder in Ukraine to be killed. and stop killing Ukrainian civilians with barrages of missiles and drones. But he's not doing that. And I think that's the case where Putin's actions speak a lot louder than his words, unfortunately.
French President Emmanuel Macron announced that in January and early January, the Coalition of the Willing will continue their work on what, in theory, could be set up as part of an ultimately reached agreement. So the steps are being taken by other parties around the globe that would like to see peace happen. But you feel like this is just an endless stall tactic on the point of Vladimir Putin. Is that what you're saying?
I do. I think that we haven't gotten to a ceasefire. The Russians just today have said that they don't consider a ceasefire to be of any value at all, that it would prolong the conflict. That's what Vladimir Putin's foreign policy advisor Ushakov said. And I think what we need to do is induce Russia to agree to a ceasefire. You do that on the battlefield. And the way to get there is for NATO to give Ukraine the military support they need to stop the Russian army in their tracks. And then we may get to a ceasefire and maybe a negotiated settlement from there.
Representative Adam Smith, a Democrat, he's also a ranking member in the Armed Services Committee, had this to say about the way forward as he sees it. Take a listen.
The message that now has to be sent is that, no, we're going to stand with Ukraine. We're going to stand with the 53-nation alliance that has been supporting Ukraine since Russia started this war. And Russia's not going to be able to take all of Ukraine. That is what forces Putin to accept this agreement. And we still haven't seen, I think, that sort of strong rhetoric. I wish President Trump would say something similar, because that's the message that needs to be sent to Putin right now.
Do you agree with him? Do you think there's a different tack that should be taken?
Well, again, I just don't think that rhetoric plays much of a role for us. It's our actions that really matter. The president has a bill that he can sign that the Senate has prepared for him with pretty biting sanctions against Russia. I think that would be a good first step. And then NATO needs to continue to give Ukraine more military assistance, long-range artillery in particular, so that they can keep up the fight and defend themselves from Russia's onslaught. This war would end today if Putin chose to end it, but he's not doing that. And the reason why is because he hasn't had to pay enough of a cost. And that's hard for us to believe here. Good on the Trump administration for trying to bring peace. I think President Trump cares a lot more about those Russian soldiers being killed on the front lines than Putin does.
And right now, when you look at that map, it appears that he's, at least for now, holding that land bridge down to Crimea. Dan Hoffman, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it. We wish you a happy new year as well.
Thanks, same to you.
Coming up tonight, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will join Bret Baier on Special Report for an exclusive interview. Tune in 6 p.m. Eastern.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.